What a week it has been for the Decarie Expressway. What a week it will be for the Decarie Expressway. Yesterday, we saw a semi-tractor trailer that was transporting an excavator hit part of an overpass on the Decarie Expressway. That created havoc for hours. Took around 6 hours for traffic to get back to normal there. But we also have the announcement that there will be work this weekend that will lead to the closure of the Decarie Expressway. Part of it is to install a pedestrian overpass to the Royal Mount development. Let's bring in Rick Leckner into the conversation, CJAD 800's Wall of Fame traffic reporter. Hi, Rick. Welcome back.
Good morning, Elias. How are you? And just to clarify a couple of things.
Tell me, clarify.
Decarie southbound and the service road will be closed from Friday night as of about 11 p.m. at the Decarie interchange down to about the Jean Talon exit. And then northbound, the entire length of the Decarie Expressway from Turcotte up to the Decarie interchange, as well as parts of the service road around De La Savane, will be closed overnight. So all of this, as you said, is for two things. At least they're coordinating two things. One is to replace, obviously, some type of perceived structural or potential structural failure in the De La Savane overpass, and at the same time, they're going to link the De La Savane Metro to the Royal Mount project with the pedestrian overpass. The Royal Mount project, which will thrust more capacity that we don't have, 25% more capacity onto the expressway without any plan whatsoever. That sets the table.
But Rick, you have to admit something. I'm looking at the rendering of this pedestrian path from the Royal Mount over the Decarie. And man, it looks like the nicest thing to have ever touched the Decarie, doesn't it?
You know what, Elias? It's going to be so nice when people are stuck on Decarie during rush hours to come, looking above and noticing all the people walking across with their Gucci, Fendi, etc., handbags, etc. Yes, it's a sight to behold.
Okay, well, so having said that, I mean, they are building the link to public transit, right? So this is Royal Mount to De La Savane Metro. For this pedestrian pathway, I guess that is a positive that's getting done.
That is a positive.
And do you know how the work is going to proceed this weekend? You talked about the closures each direction this weekend, but is it like the thing I've seen online in other cities where it's like prefab and they're just placing it there? Do you know how the work is going to go through?
I'm quite certain that is exactly what's going to happen. That has been the case before. I recall watching when they switched the exit for the Laurentian Autoroute northbound from the left to the right, that terrible exit. Who has an exit in the left-hand lane? But that's what they did. They had this massive equipment come in with on flatbed trucks with beams and placed it, which is also what they're doing, by the way, as they reconstruct the Highway 15, Highway 440 area up in Laval. So yes, that's the way it will work.
So Rick, listen, like it or not, Royal Mount is coming. Okay. Should they have not allowed Royal Mount, or because I don't know if Decarie is fixable at all. What is your take? Should they have just said, no, you can't put something here because it would cause too many impacts? Or is there a way to guard against that increase in traffic?
At this point, no. The entire area is already saturated. I might say almost super saturated. And the stats say, depending who you speak to, the developers say maybe 10% more traffic, but if you look at the City of Montreal studies, they say 25% more traffic through a Decarie interchange. It unfortunately speaks to the lack of planning that's gone on for years and years and years here. I mean, how can you possibly build a mega project like that at one of the busiest intersections in the country, certainly the busiest in Quebec, without, other than a pedestrian overpass? There's absolutely no additional work being done to accommodate all this traffic. And people are going to, unless there's some magic that they're going to do in the next next year or so, I really don't see how they're going to get this thing under control.
With CJAD 800's traffic guru Rick Leckner. So you said magic. Let me put it another way. won't it be the people just self-regulating? I think about the work on the not the Turcotte, the tunnel, the Hippolyte LaFontaine. Thank you very much. And we all thought, oh my God, this is going to be the worst thing ever. This is going to be a disaster. And people decided we're going to self-regulate. Some people just said, I'm not taking anymore. Some people stayed at home. Some people switched to public transit. Do you think that in this instance, we will find at the end of the day, people will self-regulate? Or is this just too big of a thing to get out of?
People have, shall we say, come to grips with the situation at the LaFontaine Tunnel, but at a cost. It's not as bad as they said, but the average wait to get in through the LaFontaine Tunnel is anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half every day, every morning and every afternoon. So, I mean, there's, again, they did whatever they could there, and at least there's some extra bridges in the area as options. And even with that, we've got these daily delays, which are well beyond the norm. Fortunately, there haven't been any serious incidents there. That's great. At the Decarie interchange, there are no options. We come back to, and this is my whole premise of a lack of planning. Still no Cavendish, still no Beltway to the north, as was previously planned, and I don't see that ever happening. And I heard some of your callers responding to your question, are there too many cars on the road? Our expressways are kindergarten expressways for a major metropolitan city. And there has been nothing to do to augment the capacity because, to a degree, I understand the authorities don't want to make it easier for people to take their cars. I mean, we're partly to blame because there's still a lot of single-occupant cars. But we can't get away from the reality that, our transportation system is lacking. Look at the REM. It's a joke. I mean, how can you tell people to take the REM and to go to work and to go to school and to go to the hospital, wherever they have to go, if on a daily basis they can't rely on a multi-billion-dollar project? Why are we not getting it right here?
It's very true. There have been far too many instances where the system goes down in its early phases, and we'll see what happens when the West Island Link is finally up and running. Can I ask you? Were you surprised to hear it was Pierre Fitzgibbon saying we have too many cars?
Not completely. I'm not surprised to hear him say that, but in a way, he's not completely wrong. Let's put it this way: there's too many cars for our road network. And that again goes back to, what hasn't been done over the years. Now the big question is, okay, so what are people going to do this weekend? Transport Quebec's brilliant suggestion is, well, just stay clear of the area. Well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Yeah. But because what's going to happen, Elias, is people will take the 40 to the 13 and down the 13 to 20, and I guarantee you they'll get stuck there. As they did yesterday morning when this truck hit the overpass. Everybody detoured that way because the Decarie was closed. Yeah. If we had a Cavendish, if we had a Beltway to the north, if we had a proper transportation system in from the West Island, people could look at options, but we don't have those options. So it's going to be a very, very rough weekend.
Rick, I wonder, does this the situation around Royal Mountain, around the Decarie? I have a listener who sent me a text message about the old Hippodrome site, right? And I know the city has been throwing out the idea of creating this as a neighborhood, almost a car-free neighborhood, right? Considering all the traffic issues in that area, would you say the old Hippodrome site would be a spot, if we're going to put tons of houses there, that maybe we should make it car-free so it doesn't add to the Decarie mess?
Well, that's the dream if it could work. Mm-hmm. But, you mentioned the Hippodrome, and again, this links to Cavendish, or should link to Cavendish, although obviously the Plante administration, they made promises that if they got some money put aside for the Hippodrome project and other things, they would do the Cavendish extension. And as you may have heard over the last few months or so, there's over $100 million in the kitty earmarked specifically for Cavendish, but the city mysteriously has now earmarked that money elsewhere. So this continues for decades and decades and decades just to be swept aside as if, no, we'll never build Cavendish, because I don't see this thing happening. I really don't. Not unless there is some legislation that just makes it mandatory from the federal government, although transportation is generally provincial issues. It's a mess. We just don't get it right. And looking to the future, again, I'm sorry to be negative, I don't see that it will be corrected in the foreseeable future.
Rick, when you're on, people like to vent, and I just got another text
including
message
me.
here. Yeah, including you. But I have a text message from a listener saying, asking if to see if you could get lines painted on the new section of Highway 40 in the West Island. Very difficult at night in the rain. And what's the deal with how we can't paint lines in this province, Rick?
I sigh in frustration because it's lined. I beg your pardon. It's not only lines; it's overhead proper lighting. I remember when they were redoing the whole configuration, which they didn't do great either, into the airport. It for months and months and months, it was in the dark. I mean, it was, and I finally did get a hold of a couple of people, and they finally did make some changes, but. Transport Quebec is not terribly proactive, and we have ongoing issues which we should not have. And as you say, to paint lines, you would think, okay, that's kind of a no-brainer. Why doesn't it happen? Do you even have to ask the question?
Yeah. To ask it says a whole bunch. Okay, Rick, we got to leave it there. Thanks so much.
Patience this weekend, and if you can, stay away. Otherwise, stay home and listen to CJAD.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just avoid the Decarie Expressway and the surrounding areas at all costs. Thanks so much. That's Rick Leckner right there.